Hey, Matt, thanks for doing this, man. I know this is an impromptu thing, but we have to do it.
That's all good. All good. How you doing then, Dan? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a very pleasant Thursday here in the UK. Finished work for the day. Yeah, it's been lovely. Weather's been great, which makes a nice change. I sat outside this morning, beautiful sun, cup of coffee, cup of tea. Amazing.
Yeah, I did that, but we've had some like wicked humidity, man, and it's just disgusting. But doesn't it rain all the time where you are, man?
It rains a lot, but it doesn't rain all the time. No, it doesn't rain. It's a myth. The weather here can be good.
Yeah. And you've been to Vancouver, is that right?
Yeah, so I've been to Vancouver a couple of times.
Is it the same type of weather?
No, we've got it. It's.
Do you guys have it better?
I think we've got it better. I spent a lot of time in Seattle, and we got it a lot better than the guys in Seattle.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think so. No, I was in Seattle like tons and tons of times. It was always raining. Sorry to anyone in Seattle. But
is it all doom and gloom in Seattle?
No, it's a great place. It just rained every time I was there.
Anyways, hey, so look, we're on because we're going to talk about your new game here.
Great.
And how did you like that? How do you like this?
I do. It's cool. I like it. I like it a lot. It's a nice backdrop.
This guy over here.
He doesn't look very happy.
Nah, man. And I was going to say, like, bloody hell. Like, are we looking at the end of the war with this, or are we looking at the beginning of the war? Because this gives me like this guy's been around, man.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think the game is really set sort of 1944. So it's towards the end of the war, and I've always tried to do illustrations that are, I think, for the covers certainly a little bit different than what you would normally expect for a war game cover, to try and get the sort of emotional side.
And
across.
It's funny you say that, because I remember the first time I saw your art, and I use your art on my show quite liberally, and thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate that so much, because you know you're a kind guy. You haven't hit me with a bill yet, but anyways,
that's coming.
And damn,
I'm joking.
And I remember talking to STUKAJOE and saying, "Hey man, you got to check this guy's art. There's movement in this guy's art, man. You know." And and you did that with the tanks. That's the first time I saw that, and I saw, man, the tank is moving. You could tell the tank is moving, you know. And now look at this guy. This guy. It's over.
I think, that's very kind. I think one of the things that I've developed as an artist over quite a period of time is really understanding light and how light and contrast and shadows really can help an artist. I think that, especially on some of the pieces of the tanks and the infantry, using light. And I think sometimes light, or the lack of light. So in that case, on that picture of that infantryman there, you can't actually see his face.
Right.
And I did that very deliberately, because I wanted to try and get the emotion through the physicality of his pose.
Yeah.
Rather than explicitly through the emotions in his face. So it's kept dark for sort of, and very much for narrative reasons as well, I think. You know.
Now, can you give us? I know you as an artist, okay? And just a couple of years ago, you put out. I don't know if it was your first game, but for me, it was the first time I saw Matt White put out a game. Now, can you give us a little bit of who you are and how did you come up to being an artist? Who did you study? What do you do?
Sure. You know? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem. So, I was really bad at art at school. The school that I went to, it was very much draw like a vase of flowers or fruit or you know, a shoe or something like that. And I was sucked at it like big time. So all the art that I've done really is very self-taught. I probably didn't really learn anything much about art at school. I come from an artistic family. Like my father paints a lot. So I would be surrounded by that level of artistry, and I think that very much inspired me. But at school, you know, at that age, I was kind of like into heavy metal. I wanted to draw pictures of dragons and zombies. And
did you draw pictures of dragons?
And I did. And my teacher hated them. They were like, "This is not art. You know, this is not. You're not going to be able to do this as a job, right?" When I was at school, it just didn't exist. So I think it's a lot of practice and a lot of self-learning and a lot of just huge volumes of making mistakes over and over and over all the time. And I think I sort of, interestingly, quite a few years ago now, I read a lot of comic books as well as play war games. And for a long time, I thought I would want to draw comic book stuff. So I had a try at drawing sort of mechanized mechs, Gundam, things like that. And at the same time, I was drawing things like cars and aircraft and tanks. And I put them all on Facebook, I think, as I recall. And the one that stuck out the most for the people was actually a very early illustration of a Sherman tank. People were like, oh, that's really cool. I really like that. So I was kind of like, oh, that's great. And people gave me some very positive feedback. So I did another one. And then I did another one. And they were all rubbish. I'll be honest with you. They were all rubbish. I just kept doing them and kept doing them and kept doing them. And it really kind of went from there. Now, when I was...
Rubbish is in the eye of the beholder, eh?
Well, they were terrible. I mean, they were, yeah. And when I grew up, the school that I went to, the one thing I did like about the school I went to was we had a war games club. So every Friday, you could do like an hour of like club activities. And for most of my friends, it was a lot of sports and things like that.
Of course.
But for me, there was a wargaming club, and we played old Avalon Hill games, SPI games. I would have been sort of 11, I guess, at that age. And the maths teacher and the history teacher, they used to lay out these fantastic hex-orientated maps, and I loved all that stuff. So I think it was a combination, really, of my love of playing war games and tabletop games, plus just this tenacity, I think, of wanting to express myself through the art, through the artwork.
Yeah. Are you where you want to be as an artist right now in your head, man?
I think.
Did you do your 10,000 hours?
My wife will tell you. I think. Yeah, I do put a lot of time into the work, and I think for me, it's probably the thing I've learned most about myself is to do the work that I'm happy with.
Yes.
You just pour. It's pouring the hours of work.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Who did you study as an artist?
So,
who were the masters that you studied?
So when I was looking at my first job in the industry, really, I worked for a company called Games Workshop, straight out of school.
Okay.
Not as an artist, and in their design studio, so their art studio in the centre of a city called Nottingham here in the UK. And I got on well with quite a few of the artists that worked there. And in particular, I've always been inspired by an artist called John Blanche, who's famous in the Warhammer 40,000. So sci-fi, dark grim sci-fi. Okay. And I liked how he could express ideas across in his work and through his light and through composition. And then I think over years, I would say that I'm probably inspired more, I think, in real life than artwork. Okay. So, and what I mean by that is there's a T-34 that I drew once a few years ago. It's been in a couple of games now. I think Uwe used it in one of his games. And the contrast on the colours of the tank, of all things, was quite inspired by watching water and how light reflects on water. And I just got this idea of how you could use a really contrasting color palette to do that. Yeah, so it's a lot more inspired by.
That's very Japanese of you.
It's a lot of it. The inspiration, I would say, comes from mostly from what I see around me. Materials or objects. We're very lucky here in the UK that we have some great museums, and so before COVID, we would go down to Bovington, and just seeing the tanks is always really. It's just a great day out. My kids love it, and just being up close to those vehicles. There's they have. I think it's the only running Tiger there may be another one, but they have a running tiger there, and they do like a big day. They do like a tank day where they have tanks driving around, you know.
Yeah, so, and you were telling me, man, that you saw that tiger run and you never heard anything quite.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. The noise, and I think there's a few things like that. I think if you get close to a Spitfire or you know, anything with a Merlin engine, the noise and the feeling you get when you're next to that machinery it's beyond words. I mean, the Tiger, when they started it, the ground shakes and every single hair on your body stands up.
So there's no stealth involved in a Tiger. You know it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, tanks are really noisy. The clanking of the tracks, you know, then yeah, they are really, really noisy.
I never had the opportunity to see a tank in any tank running. We're Canadian here. You know, we just love people, man.
Well, I mean, you know, that's good. But yeah, they are incredible machines. They are incredible machines. You know,
but what do you do now? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
It's all right. Quite all right. You go for it.
What do you do, man? What do you do right now? What do you do for a living?
So I work in video games. I am what we call a game director, which is probably the nearest thing to it. Is if you know, in films you have a film director. In games, some studios have what we call a game director. So it's involved in directing the sort of vision of the game, working out the gameplay, game mechanics, narrative stories, depending on what the game is. You know,
so other than if the game is a success, you get all the accolades. But if the game is crap, you get.
It's to be honest with you, it's games. Like a lot of projects I've done, and I enjoy this, is very much a team effort. Okay. Very much a team effort. And some of the games I've worked on, I think one of the differences between video games and board games is in video games, the teams can be massive. I mean, massive, hundreds of people involved.
So is all the money riding on your shoulders being the director?
You have a certain level of responsibility, for sure. But it is, yeah, it's very much a team. And I've been very lucky that the people that I've worked with over the years have been wonderful.
That's great, man.
You know, and I think that naturally I like to think of myself as incredibly collaborative, and I like collaborating with people on projects. So with war games, I've collaborated with my good friend David Thompson on a couple of projects now, with Uva, and with different people, with different publishers, and I enjoy that. I enjoy making my games on my own. And I enjoy collaborating with other people on their games as well. Okay,
and it's funny, man. I haven't heard of you, and it's probably me, before 3 years. So were you designing games prior?
No, it's a fairly recent thing, really. I've always tinkered with design of tabletop games, I've always messed about and played with them. But it was really, a few years ago where I wanted to just put more effort into creating my own games, really. It was a very sort of conscious thing, but it happened really organically and naturally. It wasn't like one day you kind of wake up and go, oh, I know, I'm going to start doing all this stuff. It just happened really organically. One thing led to another, you know. And I can remember a few years ago now, I think, and to his credit, Uva from Academy, he pinged me one day out of the blue, and he was probably the first person to ping me and said, you know, I'd love to put your artwork in one of my games. And I'd played his games, and I was like, that would be just awesome. That would be just so cool. So
where did he see your artwork?
It would have been on Facebook. So really, I'm indebted to the Facebook wargaming group. So Solitaire group, the Wargamers group. There is now a wargame art group for people who want to learn more about. I mean, my art is very illustration based, right? Okay. So whereas I think there's a lot of wargame artists that particularly focus on, you know, map drawing, cartography, or they're focused on, you know, counter art in traditional ways. I think what I've tried to do with my work that's important to me is to bring a more of an emotional place in the artwork to the games.
Okay, so do you get inspired from your drawings and then you come up with a certain game, or is it vice versa?
That's really interesting. So the truth is, it's a bit of both. So sometimes you'll draw something, you'll get I'll have an idea for something that I want to try and create emotionally or narratively. And then that will lead to an idea, oh, I could do a game about this particular thing, or I could do a game about that particular thing. Or sometimes it's the other way around, and you'll be inspired by a story. And I read a lot. So when I'm not playing games, I'm reading. So you'll be inspired by a particular story. I'm very, very driven, I think, by just sort of the narrative and the emotional side of the subject matter. So when I read books, I'll read a lot of first-hand accounts of different parts of history, and I enjoy that very much, as well as reading books about the sort of the grand theatre. But it's really the sort of the human side, and and I think, and this is going to sound strange, I think even when drawing things like tanks, it's the human side that I'm looking for. So, for example, a lot of my work, I think people will recognize my work partly because of the style, and it's quite a loose style, actually, and partly because of the contrast. So a lot of my work is on the white background, and I use a lot of pure blacks, and that's really to demonstrate, for me, the human side of the period, of the time period, the duality of people. You know, one of the things that constantly inspires me about World War II, for example, is the nature of the history. Is that most of the people that served in that period, they were not soldiers by a profession, you know.
No,
and so
they were farmers or little kids or
most
whatever.
regular people, right? And they you know, they did their part, and so there's that duality to them, and I think that's one of the things I try and reflect in the work. Is that
we got a comment here. That would be good for you to tell us where we can purchase your art.
Sure, yes. So you can, I actually do have an Etsy store where people can buy prints through my Etsy store. And it's actually something that I think I need to really address is working. I don't have a website at the minute, for example. I'm too busy drawing, stuff to even do that. So yeah, that's something I wanted to sort out in the future. But at the minute, right now, if you go to Etsy, you'll be able to find my work on Etsy, and you can buy you can buy prints from Etsy. I'm lucky that I get all my prints hand printed here in the UK. Fantastic printer, absolutely fantastic, fine art printer, and they really understand the palette that I use, and so everything's exactly how I want it, which is great. Which is really cool.
Now, before getting into The Road Chosen, how many games have you published? Self-published, that is that right?
Yes, sure. So, self-published now, goodness, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 now, I guess. So this is
holy moly, okay.
Yeah, and it's a combination of both physical games. So I've done self-published some card games that were great and people love them. That's brilliant. And I've self-published print and play games. The Road Chosen, the game that's on Kickstarter right now, is a print and play game. So self-published, those number of games, and then collaborated now on, let me think, I don't know, half a dozen or so games with different publishers as well. So yeah.
And you're talking about the artwork, collaborating as an artist.
Yes.
Right?
So the games that I collaborate on with the publishers, so with DVG, with Compass Games, is mostly on the art side. And then the games that I publish myself, I'll do the design and the production and all the artwork. Yeah. Yes.
Now, is it a lot of work doing your own print and play, your own Kickstarter, this and that? Wouldn't you want to pass that over to some company and say, you take care of it?
Right, yeah. It's a phenomenal amount of work. It's just unbelievable. It's just a huge volume of work. But I've always enjoyed the work.
Okay.
And that for me is part of feeling fulfilled as a creator, is having something that you want to say, having an avenue to express yourself creatively. And and yeah, you just have to accept it's just phenomenal amount of work that goes into running preparing everything. And I think, again, partly the reason you said, you know, where we are right now is partly through the Kickstarter platform. You know, number of years ago, the Kickstarter platform wasn't around. You know, for someone like myself who wanted to self-publish a game, the platform wasn't there.
No, and the cost would have been even more.
Right. But now the platform's there. And, you know, and Kickstarter, by its definition, that's partly why it's there, is to enable individual creators or small teams of creators to be able to show the project they want to do, and people to be part of that. And that's what I embrace about Kickstarter. Now, I know lots of companies use Kickstarter for a whole bunch of different reasons, and that's absolutely, you know, fine, great. It's an open platform. They're absolutely enabled to do that. But for me, that's what Kickstarter is all about. And I've got other friends who've done different Kickstarters in board games and video games and movies and things like that. And I think it's a great, without that platform. I know.
Now, doing the print and play thing, Matt.
Yep.
As compared to a published game.
Yep.
Do you find that it's less professional?
So that's an interesting.
Psychologically, psychologically, we're talking here.
Do you mean as a creator, or do you mean for the gamers?
Mm.
Well, it's interesting. I think the actual production methods of doing both are almost identical, because you have to lay out everything meticulously to make sure that when people are printing from home, you don't know what printer they've got. You don't know if it's home printed or a print shop, right? You've got to allow for a certain amount of trim on the sheet. The one thing you don't have to worry about is the knife that comes down to cut all the counters out. Right. And therefore you don't have to worry about what we would call bleed, where you basically have to make sure that when the cut comes down, it's all trimmed up. You don't have to worry about that. But the actual when you're sitting at I use a Mac. When you're sitting at your Mac laying everything out, it's almost identical, right? In some ways it's slightly more work, because you're not dealing with the printers who are going to give you when you're working with the printers, they'll give you the exact spec of exactly how to set all your files up. What you have to do when you're working on print and play games is you have to kind of go, well, if the game's being printed, and also here in the UK we use what we call A4. In the States, people are printing on letter. It's a different physical size. So you have to account for all that. That took me a little while to work out. But I was very lucky that I had friends that I could say, here's some files, print them out, and let's have a laugh when it all goes horribly. And it did. Right. So you learn and you refine it. And you can make it completely, I think the other thing that's interesting about print and play, and again, this comes to my experiences of playing war games. I play a lot of, and I've always played a lot of both, hex and counter war games, but also physical miniature wargaming. And there's one of the things I like about physical miniature wargaming is that sense of accomplishment of when you make something.
Mm-hmm.
So I paint all my figures. I've got a glass cabinet. I've got thousands of painted figures. And you always feel like there's that, I have done this, I have made this thing, now I am playing with it, I'm more invested into the experience. And I think there's something about print and play that I personally enjoy about that. And I have spent, I cannot count how many counters I have made doing my own games, prototypes and so forth and so forth. I've got cutting mats, and often just, you've got to be very careful. Be very careful at home when you're using cutters to not slice your fingers, as I have done numerous times. So yeah, one of the things I like about wargaming, tabletop wargaming, is the physical side of it. I like laying things out. I like moving physical things. There's something quite endearing about that, I think.
Now, you said something before concerning that you're in control when you're doing all the stuff, as opposed to sending your stuff to a publisher. Now, let's say a publisher would say, "Look, man, you have carte blanche. We'll do everything the way you want to do it." Is that attractive to you, or you still want? Yeah.
I think I've been very lucky, actually. The publishers that I've worked with when I've contributed to their games, they actually give me quite yeah, I would say they give me a lot of freedom as to the artwork that I provide.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about you working as an artist. I'm
the
talking
designer.
about giving your whole shebang to let's say PVG or Academy Games or
Yep. I think that is part of one of the things I enjoy. I think one of the things I like about self-publishing the games is that you're learning a lot about not just the game design, but how you're interacting with the fans, how you're interacting with other gamers, how you talk about the game. You're just involved in every single aspect of it, and I really enjoy that. I think that for me that's as important as the actual design work. You know, just hearing people's ideas, communicating with them.
I think that's because you're an artist, man.
I'm lucky that I've had opportunity to do both, and I enjoy both in different ways, I think. Do you know what I mean?
I have a question here by Mickey. What's your favorite period for miniature wargaming, since you mentioned miniatures?
I do like Napoleonics. But you have to paint a lot of figures the same way. So I've probably painted, 200 or 300 French infantry, and they're all pretty much the same colors, right? So that can get a little bit. You have to have a certain mindset to do that. But Napoleonics is also great because it's got all the great cavalry. So if there's a weakness I have, it's cavalry.
Okay.
Definitely. My grandfather was in the household cavalry in the British Army, so I have a lot of love for chaps on horses, shall we say.
That sounds weird, but whatever. Matt, you said you had a relative. I don't know if it was your grandfather, but he was the Queen's Guard or something.
Yeah. So my grandfather was in the Royal Life Guards, household cavalry in World War II, and he served sort of D-Day +1 through to the end of the war. And so I grew up very much, I think, with a understanding of World War II. And here where I live, which is in for those who are interested, I live in Lincolnshire here in the UK, which has a lot of World War II history. So we had a lot of airfields here, both the RAF and the American Air Force. A lot of airfields were based in this area, so Lincolnshire, Norfolk, Suffolk, etc.
Okay. Now these guys, like your grandfather, was the guy in front of the Queen's carriage with the golden hat and looking very, very flighty and frou-frou, right?
Well, I mean, he wasn't, because in the war they exchanged the horses for armored cars, obviously.
Of course.
But I can remember one of the earliest memories I have. I can remember being at my grandparents, and whenever if ever there was any royalty on TV or anything like that, then hey Ruff, then we would watch that. We would watch that together, and I think that always brought a little tear to my nan's eye. I think just to see the household cavalry. Yeah.
So being a Brit, I'm sure you know a little bit more than what it is. So all these Queen's Guards, the guys with the beef eater hats, these guys are not schoolboys, little pussy guys, right?
Well, I think I mean it's a great tradition of the Queen's Guards. I think definitely
So these guys are soldiers, man. These guys are not like, you don't mess with these guys.
I wouldn't want to mess. No, definitely not. Definitely not want to mess with anything to do with the soldiers looking after the royal family.
Look like that, huh? It's because they look so queenie like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And my grandfather's regiment has history all the way back to the English Civil War. They were one of the, in fact, another historical period that I'm very passionate about is the English Civil War. Well, what should be called the English Civil Wars, really. And the Life Guards were one of the regiments that came, post that along with the New Model Army. So
that's too cool. The history you guys got, it's just, I mean, compared to North America. We were talking just a few days ago, and I was saying, man, Montreal celebrated their 375th, and we were talking, and I said, my mom's house is 800 years old in Italy. I mean, anyways.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. We're where we're from here in the sort of East Anglia part of the UK, this is for those who are interested in the ancient period. This is sort of Boudica country. So this is where when Rome invaded Boudica, she was not happy with that at all, and yeah. So it's and there's a lot of there's a lot of Viking history in this part of the world as well.
Okay, so I see you got a mix of Viking and Italian, but anyways,
I've got a Viking hair a little bit, and maybe the beard. But
Nathaniel's got a great question here. Are there aspects of designing for print and play that limit the mechanics of your game?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah,
I think there is a certain element of you've got to be aware that when people are printing the sheets out, you want. So this is what I found sometimes buying print and play games is that you can sometimes be looking at having to print out huge volumes of material and cutting out huge volumes and things like that. So I try and be as streamlined in the design as possible so that you're thinking about the end user all the time.
And what about gameplay mechanics?
Well, I think that's part of it. I think that has an impact on the gameplay.
Okay.
So, and I would say this is a positive because what you're doing is you're putting a constraint on yourself at the same time as opening everything up. So basically, as a designer, you're saying, okay, well, I want the design to do this, this, and this, but I've got to be aware that I want the player at home to feel this is accessible and they can get into the game as quickly as possible. So you don't want the player to have to spend, days printing everything out and mounting everything before they can start playing. So you're very much focused on streamlining a lot of the core gameplay, what I call the gameplay loop, right? So which is the mechanics and the interaction of a turn and how everything feeds into each other.
Okay.
As quickly as possible for the player. So I think that one of the things I try and focus on is very much thinking about the end user and what the end user wants and what the end user expects, as well as fulfilling what the story that I want to tell in the piece of work that I'm providing. Yeah.
Okay, Matt, let's get into your game there. The Road Chosen. First of all, why that title? Why that title and why the sad guy?
Okay, so I wanted to do a game the game's been in development now for several years, and I wanted to do a game that really focused on one core aspect, which is around having to make very difficult decisions when you don't have all the information that you'd possibly want. And I wanted to do a game where a solitaire game where every aspect of the mechanics, there was a fundamental decision for the player to make.
So
and
this is a tactical game, obviously.
Yeah, it's definitely more at that level. But at the same time, you're weighing up all the options that you have, and you don't have all the information that you could possibly want. So during the game, you're moving your troops and your tanks into new zones, and you don't know what's going to be in there. When I'm playing hex and counter games that I love, I have a godlike view of the whole map. I know for the most part. I know exactly what all the enemy units are. I know exactly where they all are. I know what I'm going to encounter. Well, with my game, I wanted to do a game where you didn't know that. You don't know what you're going to encounter. And the things you can encounter in the game can vary from not only enemy troops, but through events that will either help you or hinder you. So it's dealing with the unknown. And it's the fact that even when you work out what's going to happen, you just simply cannot do all the things you would want to do. You cannot, the age-old saying, you're not going to be able to make everyone happy all the time.
No.
And I wanted to do a game about that. That one core thing. And at that point, actually, when I thought of this idea, I had no idea at that point whether it was World War II, what it was going to look like, how it was going to work. It was just that central idea of you have got to make hard decisions, and they are going to be hard.
Now, you were saying, sorry to cut you off, you were saying about the fog of war, basically, what you're talking about. Now, there's on the map itself, there's only your units, and how do the other units pop up?
So when you go into the way the map works out is that the map's split into zones. When you go into a new zone, you'll roll on charts to determine what happens in that zone. That may result in there being enemy units there. it may result in there being enemy units there and events that can happen that help or hinder you when you're encountering those enemy units. So, for example, you may find these enemy units, but you've caught them napping. You're getting the drop on them. So that's going to help you. Or you may find that when you go into that zone, these enemy units, they've set an ambush for you. So it's going to hurt, that's going to hinder you. So you don't know until you go into that zone. You are facing the unknown. And what I found was in a lot of the narratives that I've read about about warfare in general, is that all the plans go out of the window. Once the action starts, everything goes out the window.
Yeah. Right.
And you're dealing with things instantaneously. And some of those things, you know, the good fortune, the bad luck. Like there was a book about tank crews in World War II, British tank crews. I think it was the Knots guys, and every account was, you know, there was this crew driving their Sherman, and they were on a ridge, and there was loads of Germans that they could see them, and they were firing at them, and every single shot missed by luck. Every single shot missed. And then the same account, one of the other crews, one of the buddies of the writer, was in his tank, and he dropped his Sten gun. The Sten gun went off inside the tank and killed him. Unbelievable bad fortune. Unbelievable good luck.
Now, do we have events like that?
We do. Yeah, we do. We do.
That detail?
Yeah, that level of detail. So, for example, there's another great account of the British Airborne. Now, I have a particular lot of love for the British Airborne in World War II. And there were accounts where they were fighting alongside the American troops. And the British Airborne, it's 2 o'clock, it's time for tea. We're going to have a tea break now. And the American guys were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Well, it's tea time. We're going to stop for tea. And they were literally brewing up, making tea in the firefight, right? And I love leaning into those kind of events, you know. So in the game, you may meet the French resistance, and the French resistance will help you and aid you, you know. So you have all these events that can happen, but you can't plan for them. You don't know they're going to happen. They happen during the course of the game, and that's what helps create that narrative. So when you finish your game session, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened and that happened. And then we fought this. And that's what one of the things I love about wargaming.
Yeah, I love those event things.
It's that story. It's that story that I create. And the reason I like that, and again, this is partly into my ethos about why this game is a print and play game. I have to make, it sounds strange. You got to troll. I have to make the game physically, and I have to put it all together, and then I make the story. I play the game, and then the story's personalized to me. So the game's personalized to me because I physically make it. I play the game, it's personalized to me. It's all about that.
Now, is it safe to say that you were inspired by John Butterfield's Ambush?
I think I think, you know, I've always enjoyed solitaire narrative, what I would describe as narrative-led games. I love Queen of the Skies. I love Pan's Best. I love, you know, The Hunters. I love every solitaire design from David Thompson. It's one of the things I love about the hobby is that feeling of just those rich narratives that come out. And what I've tried to do with this game, what my aim with this game was that I love all those types of games. But what I've tried to do here is to make it the decision-making, the key thing. So, you know, some games I think can feel, and I enjoy them, can feel very much on rails. I go into this thing, I roll the dice. I don't have any choices to make. I just roll dice.
B17 is
B17, right?
Yeah.
And what I've tried to do, what I've wanted to do with this experience is and that's why that, you know, I use the word emotion and narrative a lot in talking today, and that's why I use this piece of artwork for the cover, because I wanted to do something where you feel an emotion from.
Well, it's very evocative of like dread. There's dread there, man, all the time, you know.
Yeah,
and it's well done. I got that instantly. Boom.
It's not gonna end well.
It doesn't look like it's gonna start well either, man.
You know, and then when you do get those small victories, you feel that, you know, and and I've described when I wrote down the words of how I wanted the player to feel. So a lot of the work that I do, a lot of the artwork I do in designs, one of the things, the approaches I take is not thinking about what the mechanics I want to be. I think about what I want the player to feel, and then I work out what the mechanics are that are going to contribute towards that.
Okay.
Right. And in this game, I want the player to feel huge loss when they lose the troops that they've been commanding, and I want that to feel powerful. And equally, I want to feel powerful that when you do snatch victory right in the jaws of defeat, I want the player to feel that as well.
Is there any RPG elements in it?
I mean, there absolutely are. I think that we were discussing earlier when I was big into wargaming, as from being a little boy, really, RPGs, Dungeons and Dragons, has always been a massive influence on me. Absolutely massive influence on me. I play those type of games with my kids now. Right. That storytelling, that emotional connection you have with your character. And that's one of the things I like about. It's one of the things I like about this type of war game, I think. Yeah. So
the scale of this game, you would say it's tactical?
It's at a tactical level. You are commanding squads and you're commanding tanks, but you are, I think, perhaps an understanding of them as a group. I think the other games that I did Until the Bitter End, which is also a print and play game, you were commanding a squad of individuals, and it was much more about the individual contribution. Whereas this game, I think it's more tactical at squad level.
Okay, I'm going to try to. I'm going to see what happens if I put up a picture here like this. Bang. Okay, and I'm going to share. Sorry there, Matt, with this.
It's quite all right.
I try to do my best. Bang. Blast. Are we on with that? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
we're looking at your game here, and it's not Hex. It's not Hex and Counter at all.
No, it's not Hex and Counter. And for a while, actually, the first prototypes I did was Hex and Counter. But what I found was that as soon as I see a map with Hex and Counters, my brain instantly, as a gamer, goes into Hex and Counter mode, right? And that wasn't the feeling I wanted to try and encapsulate with the project. So I went to an area based, but as soon as I did that, everything just started to click into place. And I think that as a designer, that's sometimes what you look for is you just look for something that works, and you go, oh, that's great. Now I can do this with it, and now I can do this with it, the ideas build upon themselves and naturally start feeding each other. What you have here in this example, this is a sort of an example in play. So it's not at the start. The game's already underway. We've got some American troops who have entered quite a dense forest area. That's sort of a large area. Let's be pointing at screens. No use, is it? In the center there, and they've encountered quite stiff German Axis resistance. Then you've got some other zones where they've probed a little bit, maybe a little bit too far, and they've encountered some Axis armor and so forth. The other thing I want to just talk about is that depending on the scenario you're playing, you can either play the game on a scenario basis or you can play a campaign. And what I've got at the minute is that there'll be a variety of scenarios and a variety of campaigns as well, depending on the force that you want to play. So if you're playing the American Army, this is an American Army scenario. There'll be an American Army series of scenarios and a campaign. The same will be true for the British, and the same will be true. You can play the Axis as well. So each force have their own scenarios and campaigns that you can play, and the campaign links all those scenarios together, right? The other thing here as well is that the zones, the areas that you have taken control of, well, that's not an end to it. You'll be rolling on some very simple charts to determine what happens in those areas. So you'll find, again, it's about the best laid plans. Doesn't work, right? You'll be pushing forward, and then the opposing force will take some of those zones back off you and cut off your supply lines. So you're constantly having to deal with an ever-changing AI system within the game. You're constantly having to. You think again, it's about that decision making. Is that you feel, well, I'm the one making the decisions. I'm the one in charge of this game. Well, in this game, you're not going to be. you're having to respond to what you're presented with, as well as trying to meet your objective. And that's, again, part of that core decision-making process. You're just not going to be able to do everything that you would possibly want to do. And the game takes those decisions, presents those decisions, then you have to decide.
So is this card-driven?
No, there's no, at the minute, there's no cards. It's purely based on, there are a series of very straightforward charts that you would go through to determine what happens in the zones that you encounter, and then what happens in the previous zones that you've taken control of. Yeah.
And what about replayability?
So this is where the different scenarios comes into play. So some scenarios will be about you pushing through the map. Some of them will be about holding on to specific zones. Okay. Some of them will be about pushing the enemy out of specific zones, depending on the scenario you're playing. And also that depends on the force that you're playing. So, for example, with some of the airborne missions, you're going to be determined. You don't even know where your troops are going to drop, right? So you're having to deal with that effect as well.
Did you factor in flak?
Did I factor in flak? There are, yes. In the random events, there are a whole bunch. I've basically thought of every single thing I could think could possibly happen, and that helps with that narrative. So when you're going through those events that can happen in each zone, that will create that unique narrative, and it's the list is at the minute. Yeah, it's just growing by the day, which is great.
Okay, so being a game designer and putting your heart out on the internet, you're going to have critiques, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here we go.
Yeah.
No blue, green, or brown backgrounds on the counters. I can't tell who's who. What are you going to do about that?
So this is okay. Great feedback. So every counter has an Axis or an Allies icon on it, right? So you can determine whether they're American. So even if you don't know the difference in the uniforms, you'll be able to determine. The other thing I've done that I got some feedback, and this is one of the great things about being, the designer and the publisher and all those things wrapped into one, is some people give me some feedback, said, hey, I love all the art, but I would like both sides to be facing opposite each other.
Right.
So the Allies, for example, always face left to right, and the Axis are always facing right. And I changed the art to do that.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to ask you about that, but I see you've done it.
Yeah, I just did it, and I did it it's one of the first updates I did for the Kickstarter. There you go.
Yeah, it's a troll. It's a troll.
So you can absolutely you'll be able to determine instantly whether they're Allies or whether they're Axis counters. Yeah, and they have a different color border, and there's some of the minor art tweaks in there that you'll be able to determine. So even if you don't know the difference between a Panzer IV and a Sherman, it'll be obvious which one's which.
There you go, Dave. Your question has been answered, and the feedback has been taken seriously.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Again, being the creator, you are able to get the feedback firsthand from people, which is fantastic, and you can act on it really quickly. So people have said to me, "Oh, I think it'd be better if." Great, I'm in Photoshop. I'm doing it that night. Do you know what I mean? And I enjoy that. I enjoy that sort of quick iteration.
Is this strictly a 2-player game, or are we going to have solo or team versus team?
Sure. So it's a solitaire game. As it's designed, it's a solitaire game. Someone actually asked me the other day, could you do a versus mode in the game? And the answer is absolutely could. Absolutely could. I need a few things to figure out a few things, but yeah, absolutely.
So how are you going to do that if it's all chart driven?
That's for me to work out. Yeah. This is one of the things about the work is that there are certain things you want to do for the game. So there are certain, and this is what I like about the Kickstarter platform, is that it's a two-way conversation, right? For me anyway, Kickstarter's about two-way conversation. Right. It's about, here's the work I've done, here's the project that I'm envisaging, here's all the work that I'm doing for it. And people go, looks great, fantastic, thank you, brilliant, absolutely. And then there are people who go, oh, it'd be great if you could do this. And then that's my job to go, oh, I think you're onto something there. Do you know what I mean? That's what I like about the Kickstarter process. I think that's what, for me anyway, the process is all about, right? So, and again, co-op, there's no. I had ideas the other day about again just using historical reference. So maybe there's a British player playing all the British armor, and there's another player playing the American Airborne, for example, and you've got something quite interesting there. That's what I like about it's what I like about the I think one of the things I really enjoy about the wargaming communities is people are, which is a good thing. People are very forthcoming with their ideas, and great, absolutely great.
Yeah, forthcoming is a very nice word. But anyways,
well, I'm British. I'm very polite.
Yes, of course you are, and I'm Canadian, so we're very sorry. But anyways, so Matt, this screams expansions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Screams.
I think it's in. So what I have in my head, I have probably about the next 6 games I want to do in my head at all times, and I dip in and out of developing each one in turn. So I'm particularly interested in at the minute in creatively. The one thing I would, and you asked me earlier about like artistically, am I where I want to be? I think the one thing I do want to do in the future is broaden my palette of subject matter that I can work on. So I'm particularly interested in some of the stories I've been reading about the mosquito raids in Europe, which would mean drawing aircraft, which is something I've dipped into but not explored. That could use a similar sort of system. So I could see how I could evolve this into different theatres and different time periods. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so. There are a huge number of historical subjects that I would love to study more and to develop more games and more game designs and more artwork for. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put up another image here, 9898598 here. There we go. Bang. There's a close-up view.
A close-up, yeah. I think so. In this image, what you can see here again, you've got a couple of Shermans with the slightly heavier 76mm guns. So those 76mm guns packed a bit more punch for anti-tank guns, and we've got a couple of those with a couple of infantry units. They've gone into this zone and they've met a tiger, right? So you don't know before you go into that zone what's going to be in there. And they've met a tiger. The other thing I think that I want to talk about a little bit about is the maps. All the maps are hand drawn, and you can almost see on that image, I think, every single paintbrush line.
Yes.
And they are literally drawn paintbrush mark by paintbrush mark. The canvas, if I was to paint, everything I do is done digitally. The reason it's done digitally is partly practical, because I have small children, and oils, which is probably what I would prefer to use if I was painting on canvas.
Gotcha.
Oils and small children don't always go well together.
No.
If it was a real canvas, the canvas would be massive. It would be absolutely massive. In fact, probably actually that screen resolution there is probably about the sort of size I paint at. Do you know what I mean?
Really? That's small? I'm talking about the chits there.
Oh, no, sorry. The counters are massive. Okay. I mean, the artwork on the counters is massive.
Right.
It's absolutely massive.
Of course. With all the detail. Look at the detail.
It's massive. Like if you were to print them out, if I was painting them on canvas, the canvas would be, I don't know, a meter and a half. They're huge, right? And I've really enjoyed doing the artwork. I find when it's going, like everything in life, when it's going well, it's really relaxing and absorbing, and the hours just swim by, right? And then I'll often show my wife and go, "Well, what do you think to that?" She'll go, that looks rubbish. That bit, no, she doesn't. She's very, very focused feedback, which is great.
Yes.
And that is something that I very much enjoy. I'm just answering.
That's why I put that up there. And you see, boxed edition. So, after this question, I'm going to ask you another one here.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter is for a print and play. What that means is that you'll get digital files. You just run them through your home printer. You don't need to print too many out to start playing straight away. if you want to print everything out, so there will be 3 maps. There's numerous sheets of different counters for infantry, different counters for tanks. There's not a huge number of gameplay counters, and rule books, PDFs for all the different scenarios and the campaigns. And I'm doing more and more of those scenarios and campaigns as we're unlocking stretch goals and so forth. So
is the Kickstarter up right now?
The Kickstarter's up right now. It's fully funded. I created loads of stretch goals for it, and they've all been hit. So I'm in the process now going, okay, I better create some more stretch goals.
I see. So your stretch goals were not created beforehand.
No, I did them all beforehand, and I've been very lucky and had a great reception from the community. So all the goals have been hit. All the stretch goals have been hit. So I got more to think of as to what. And again, people are giving me some great feedback on ideas of things that they would like to see in addition. And I'm always, always eager to just keep doing the work, So yeah.
So Matt, I'm the type of guy that I want to buy a box. Okay, that's just the
sure.
way I'm made. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I know you're a Kickstarter guy and you want to do this. Now your previous games, are you gonna amalgamate all this and make it into a box? Something?
Yes.
You're gonna do that?
Yes. So the slightly longer term goal is, I think at a point, I really want to create my own self-published box games. And I think that it will give me opportunity to work with some other people that I've enjoyed working with in the past. But yeah, I very much would love to see this progress into an opportunity for me to start publishing more boxed products, and publish them myself. Yeah.
Okay, that's another thing. So you gotta be a rich man to do this. You're super wealthy. Is that right?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
So
no, I'm an indie. I'm by definition a completely indie developer.
Okay, so this goes against conventional thinking. You're indie and you want to publish your own boxed game type thing, right?
Yeah,
But if GMT comes up to you and throws all this publishing money at you, what are you gonna do?
I want to publish. And here's the thing: where I am creatively, I enjoy. Like I said, I really enjoy working with I've been contacted for a lot of for a huge number of projects over the few years. Right?
I'm sure you have
all the time. Would you be interested in doing the art for this? Would you be interested in doing the art for that? And the honest truth is, I simply would love to, but don't have the time. Right? This is something I do at the weekends and in the odd evening here and there. I simply don't have the time, and I've turned some projects down. I've gone, I'd love to do the art on that. I just don't have the time. Right? But I am, if I'm being very honest, I'm very, very selective of which publishers and which designers that I would like to work with. And I've been very lucky to have worked with great people. And I love that. And I can put that into one piece of work that I do. But the other piece of work that's really important for me creatively is that I want to be able to express the ideas that I have, and I want to do the work, and I want to engage the community end to end, completely end to end. That's super important to me, and that's why I would call myself as an indie developer and publisher. And I want to produce a variety of different games over a variety of different subject matters. Some of them I'd love to collaborate with people on. Some of them I'd love to do myself, just completely solo. Right.
Please watch this interview after, because you're going to learn something here, and maybe you know it or you don't know it. But me being an artist, I get you 100%, even more than that. I applaud you, this and that. But me working in psychiatry for 20 years makes me think that you're a control freak, that you want everything, you want to control. The thing is that, Matt, your games sell out like this, okay?
Yep.
Now, if I want to buy your game, it's sold out. GMT, I'm just using GMT or DVG. DVG is going to print 10,000 of your games. Are you going to print 10,000 of your games?
Well, I'd love to print 10,000. I'm not sure where they're going to fit. Well, I said to my wife, was joking the other day. She's like, "Where are you going to put all these games when you print them? Like in years to come, if you do a big print run, where are you going to put them all?"
And I wasn't even thinking about that.
Well, they're going to stack up in here.
Their marriage.
They're going to stack up in here, right? I think that I'm just reading Dave's comment. Most artists, I think there is an element of that. Yeah, I think you I enjoy the work, and I enjoy the creative side. Obviously, I enjoy all that, and I enjoy being able to express the ideas that I've got, and I want to see them as a finish. Again, it's a feeling of accomplishment, right? Like when, and this is going to, for those people who've done it, they'll understand. Tell you, when you design your game and you do all the art for it, and then it's printed in your hand, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling you have. It's worth all the work. And even if you only ever printed one of them, I would feel that was an amazing thing to do.
You see, Matt, I mean, there's a Peter Gabriel song called DIY. So if you want some control, keep it small, do it yourself type thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
But you have worked with Microsoft. You've worked with huge budgets and huge thing.
Yeah.
Now you're at a point now where people are interested. And Matt White, oh, I like his art. Oh, I like his games. Man, I don't think, will you be able to control all that demand? Will you be able to fulfill that demand?
Time will tell, I guess is the honest answer. I'd like to, yeah, I mean, I think I think there's something really powerful about the creation of something, not just the artwork, not just the game design, but it all coming together. And in the games that I've printed myself, I've had printers, I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy all the parts of the process. Some of these things are things that I've learned professionally through my career of, dealing with partners and dealing with outsourcers and things like that. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that whole end-to-end experience. I totally understand. I totally get that there are game designers who they want to do the design and they want graphic people and artist people.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're not artists,
Right. Like, totally understand that.
You seem to be the whole shebang, which personally, if I can, well, my advice is worth a squat. But imagine if John Butterfield did what you did. We would have no games by John Butterfield.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just something I enjoy. And it's something that I think this is one of the hardest things when you're looking at your own work and seeing other people's work, is that I present everything as, oh, here's a picture of a Sherman, here's a picture of a Tiger, here's some infantry, whatever. Here's a game design. Honestly, that's like 1%. 99% of everything else is where it's all gone wrong, and you're just persevering. Like people who because I have this belief, and it's a really strong belief that every single person can be an artist, because by my definition of what that word means, it simply means the ability to express yourself creatively. Yes. So therefore, by that definition, everyone can do it.
Well, okay, Matt, you must have heard this before. Everybody can do it, but they don't. So first of all, it is my belief that you were born an artist. You are not made an artist. Mm-hmm. Because if you are made an artist, it's going to look like an artwork that's, I don't know, made. But if you are born an artist, it's going to be unique to you now.
Yeah,
Going back to relinquishing some control.
Yeah.
Matt, man, I think you already have the art under control. Okay? Now, we don't know at the printers what it's going to look like. Maybe the grass is going to come out blue. Who knows? But that's a mistake, though. That's a mistake. I don't know if you can redo it, but then there's time involved. I know all that crap. It's all crap, right?
Yeah.
So you got the art happening. You got the design happening. Yep. You've got the control freak in your head happening a little bit. Now, what's the problem if a publisher says, sure, man, we're going to do it your way at 99%, because you're going to have to relinquish something for sure, not doing it yourself. And nothing. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Now you're getting big. and you're getting big. Where are you going to put those games? Where are you going to get the cash to do this? Frank is sick. Frank doesn't want to do this and this and that. And Bob's not into it, the guy you wanted to get into it. And so you're going to have to do it all yourself. You can't. You're going to freak out. You're going to have a breakdown. I'm telling you. So you're going to have to relinquish some control. When will this happen? And it will happen.
I think when it comes to compromise, when it comes to being a little bit out of your depth, David Bowie, I think it's David Bowie, said, you'll do your best work when, imagine you're in the sea and your feet are not quite on the bottom. Not quite.
Okay.
You can see the sand under you, but you're just off the bottom.
Right.
So it's not like you're looking into the, the perilous depths of unknown. And I agree with that. I think you have to put yourself in. It's just a personal, statement of work and work ethic I have, is that you have to push yourself into things that you might not know every single thing about, and you are just, and that's when you'll do your best work. I completely agree with that. So
you're saying that you don't want to relinquish nothing. You just want to take the chance and bust your face if you have to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because from my point of view, this is wargaming is a hobby. It's a hobby I have. Making my games is a hobby that I have. And the minute where I feel that I'm not enjoying that, then it's a hobby, right? So
I understand. But me as a consumer, Matt, I want the box.
Yeah, so I think this is the point actually that one of the comments here Dave is making. Is it control? Is it willingness to listen to criticism? Yeah, I completely agree. Like you have a vision, very much a vision of what you want to create, and you are listening to feedback constantly, and you're kind of going, that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. I could take that and develop it further. And that's what I talk about, that sort of organic creative growth happens. And that's what's exciting. That's what's interesting, right? And some of those ideas spark some other people, or something you read, or a throwaway comment. It can come from anywhere. There are also, and this is also true of work, of this sort of creative work, is that you cannot please every single person all the time.
No.
So you have to sort of stick to your vision of what you want to achieve. And find the things that sort of add value, what in my opinion add value to that. And that's what that's part of the things that I enjoy. And again, because like I said, if someone said to me, oh, I think it would be better if it was done this way, I go, oh, that's interesting. Sleep on it. Next morning, I'm in Photoshop, changed. Do you know what I mean? And I like that. I enjoy that sort of quick iteration.
Okay, Matt, here's my last question, because we went over our time, because I could do this for 2 hours easily, because man,
that's great.
I'm learning about myself. Are you satisfied with anything you've done?
So I learned a long time ago, I think, that you're never going to be, ever, right? And I have this really bad habit of, even when I show my work on a YouTube or something, I can't help but tinker and tweak with it. I learned that there comes a point where you have to say, I need to show this to other people. I need to get feedback. I need to make public what the work I've done. But it's never done. It's never finished. It's just a point. It's a point in time. And you have to. I think it's natural. I think it's supernatural. All the creative people I've ever worked with in my career, that by definition, with moments of great anxiety. I mean, the week before I launch a Kickstarter, honestly, can't sleep, can hardly eat, because you're so self-critical. You're so, people aren't going to like this. This bit's not good. This bit's, doesn't look great. This is really badly, et cetera, et cetera. And you have to put yourself and think. You just have to go that again, just that little feet not quite touching the floor.
Yeah. And you know, and the reason why I asked that is because I had an experience. I used to be in a band, and my drummer taught me something that hit me right in the head. As a band member, let's say as a team member, you do a rough sketch and you present it to whomever, right? So as a musician, I do a rough recording and I present it to my band, and my band says, "Great, it sounds great. Let's do it like that." And you're like, "No, it's a rough sketch."
Yeah, sure.
So that's where you relinquish control and you say, "Stop screwing with it." Because the more you screw with it, you're going to change the whole dynamics of the whole piece.
Yeah, I think, and that's where it comes to that sort of vision. As long as you're very clear and focused on what and this is why I think in my games and the work that I do with war games is I've always got a very clear in my head of what I want the piece to achieve. And for me, it's about feeling, actually what I have in my head is picturing myself playing the game and what I want the player to feel. And that's why I use that, because that gives me enough scope and opportunity to explore within that feeling that I want to achieve from the player. From the player.
Well said, man. Well said. So tell us again, it's on Kickstarter right now?
Yeah, it's on Kickstarter right now. If you just type in The Road Chosen into Kickstarter, or you probably type my name into Kickstarter and it'll come up. It's been on Kickstarter now for just over a week. It's got 3 weeks left. And yeah, the reception's been absolutely fantastic. We'd just like to take the opportunity to thank everyone, all my backers, all the people who supported my work. Both in the other war game creators and war game players. Just want to say a big thank you to everyone there. Thank you to you too as well, Dan. You've always promoted my work, and that is
I love it. I love it. I wouldn't do it otherwise. Like, what do you think? I do this for money?
No, I don't think you do it for money at all. I tell you now.
And your artwork. Someone had said that they found another Matt White from Brooklyn.
Okay, yeah.
Where can we get your artwork?
So if you want to buy just fine art prints, just go to Etsy and type my name in. Or if you just type in Sherman Tank art into Etsy, my stuff will come up, for example, or Tiger Tank art or whatever. And yeah, I have shipped artwork in massive artwork tubes all around the world, which has been great. Awesome. I think it's one of the things I think is important is in this world is that I use this very much to show my kids and people that I know and say, look, there's something really powerful and life affirming that you can create, and people like what you've created and give you feedback, and it's part of the hobby that I really enjoy. There's a lot of it's one of the things I like about it's actually why I chose wargaming more than like Euro games or anything like that, because wargaming feels more
controllable,
a closer. I think it's a closer connection to the gamers, right?
Yeah, because if you would have went Euro games, you're not gonna print and play squat,
right? Like I can be on whether it's Consim World or whether it's Facebook or YouTube, and I can always feel really connected to other creators. Do you know what I mean? I can get to know people, and there's not many other hobbies I've ever been in where I feel that.
Being an artist is all about communication, man.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So, is it Rough Swordsman? Is that art by Studio White?
Yeah, by Studio White. If you go to Etsy, there you can see my work and you can buy fine art.
So that's it. Okay. Matt, thanks a lot, man. This is a blast.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure we're going to do this again.
Love to.
Stick around. I'm going to do my outro. And
perfect.
You know what? Thank you, people, for the comments. They're awesome comments. Great.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.